They never came back. February 1959, 9 hikers, young, strong, full of life, set out on a journey into the Ural Mountains of Soviet Russia. It was supposed to be an adventure, a test of endurance, a challenge to push themselves against nature's brutal force. They were led by Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old engineering student with experience, confidence, and a dream of conquering the snowy peaks. With him, 8 others, brilliant minds, athletes, future scientists, engineers, explorers of a different kind. They laughed, they took photos, they wrote in their journals. They had no idea. They were walking into a nightmare. Weeks after they vanished, search teams found their bodies scattered across the mountainside, but nothing made sense. Their tent was discovered first, half buried in snow, its fabric slashed open, not from the outside, but from within, as if something unspeakable had made them flee into the deadly cold. But why? What could drive 9 experienced hikers to abandon their only shelter in the middle of the night, barefoot, half-dressed, running into a blizzard? The bodies were found in groups, the first 2 near the edge of the forest, barefoot in their underwear. They had died of hypothermia, their hands scraped raw, as if they had tried to climb the trees in desperation. 3 more were found halfway back to the tent, frozen solid, their faces locked in expressions of terror. And then, the last 4. They were found deep in the woods, buried under 4 meters of snow, as if they had been trying to hide from something. But what the investigators saw made their blood run cold. Their skulls were shattered, their ribs were crushed. It was as if an unimaginable force had struck them, so powerful it destroyed them from the inside, yet their skin remained untouched. No bruises, no wounds, nothing. And one of them, Lyudmila Dubinina, was missing her tongue. The Soviet authorities were quick to close the case. Their official statement, an unknown compelling force, no explanation, no justice, no answers. But people had questions, too many questions. Was it an avalanche? If so, why were their bodies spread out in a way no avalanche could explain? Why were some missing eyes, their bones broken without external damage? Was it secret military tests? Radiation was found on some of their clothing. Did they stumble upon something they weren't meant to see? Or was it something else? Something not human? Some say the Mansi, the indigenous people of the area, warned of an ancient curse in these mountains. Others whisper of lights in the sky, strange orbs seen near the pass that night. Whatever happened to the Dyatlov group, one thing is certain: something scared them, something made them run, and whatever it was enough to kill them all. Today, the place where they died is known by a different name, a name that chills the bones of anyone who dares to speak it. Dyatlov Pass. And even now, the truth remains buried in the snow. Do you believe in ghosts? To understand the Dyatlov Pass incident, we must go back to the beginning, back to where it all started. 9 students, 1 dangerous journey, and a fate no one could have predicted. January 23, 1959, 10 hikers, 9 students and 1 older man, boarded a train in Sverdlovsk, heading toward the freezing wilderness of the Ural Mountains. Their goal? To reach Otorten, a mountain whose name, in the local Mansi language, means "don't go there." They were young, full of life, laughing, joking, documenting everything in diaries and cameras, never once thinking their journey would end in horror. Their leader, Igor Dyatlov, was confident. The group was experienced, skilled in survival, but this was a level 3 expedition, the highest difficulty. Only the toughest could handle it, and they were ready, or so they thought. They made a stop in Vijay, the last settlement before the endless white of the Urals. Here they met the indigenous Mansi people who had lived in these lands for centuries. The Mansi knew the mountains better than anyone. They respected them, and they feared them. Some say the mountain was cursed, that spirits watched from the peaks, that those who went too far never returned. But the group, they didn't believe in ghosts. They believed in logic, science, and their own strength. So they pressed on. But one of them didn't. Yuri Yudin, the 10th member, fell ill just days into the trek. His joints ached. His fever rose. He had no choice. He had to turn back. As he waved goodbye, he had no idea. He was saying farewell to his friends for the last time. He would be the only one to survive, the only one left to wonder what really happened that night. The last photos taken by the group show them climbing higher into the mountains. Snow thickens, the wind howls. But then, something strange. One photo stands out, blurry, dark, a figure hidden in the trees. Was it just a shadow, a trick of the light, or was someone, something, watching them? They didn't know it yet, but something was waiting for them at Dyatlov Pass. February 1st, 1959, the group set up their final camp. For reasons unknown, they chose to stay on the exposed slopes of Kolatsiakl, rather than the safer forest below. Maybe they wanted a challenge. Maybe they were just tired. Or maybe they had no choice. The wind is strong. It's hard to sleep, but spirits are high. We are almost there. We are laughing. We are warm. We are not afraid. Tomorrow we push forward. Tomorrow never came. No one knows what happened next, but sometime in the middle of the night, something made them flee. Something so terrifying, so immediate, that they tore through their tent with knives, ripping the fabric from the inside out. They didn't take their boots. They didn't take their coats. They ran, barefoot, into the freezing dark. But what were they running from? Or who? The search teams found their footprints, a trail leading into the woods. But then, the footprints just stopped. No signs of struggle, no sign of an attacker. Just silence. The bodies would not be found for weeks, and when they were, the world would never be the same. Something happened that night, and whatever it was, it has never let go. 25 days, that's how long it took for the world to realize something was wrong. The first body was found near the edge of the forest, then another and another. But what the searchers saw, they would never forget. It wasn't just death, it was something much worse. The first bodies belonged to Yuri Doroshenko and Georgy Krivonashenko. They had tried to build a fire. Their hands were scraped raw. Had they climbed the tree to escape something? To see something? Their skin was covered in burns. Radiation traces were found on their clothes. But how? And why? Dyatlov, the leader, was found clutching a branch, as if trying to crawl back to the tent. Zenaita's body was covered in bruises, her fists clenched tight. Rustem, his skull was cracked. Had they fought something? Had they run from something unseen? Or had something been hunting them? Nikolai Thibault Brignol's skull was crushed, as if hit by a force greater than any human could deliver. Semyon Zolotaryev's ribs were shattered. His injuries were compared to those from a car crash, but there were no external wounds, no bruises, nothing to explain the damage inside his body. Alexander Kolovatov, his neck twisted at an unnatural angle. And then there was Ludmila Dubinina. Her ribs were broken, but what terrified investigators the most? Her tongue was missing, gone, ripped out. Some say it was scavengers. Others believe it was something else. The Soviet authorities closed the case quickly. The official explanation? An unknown compelling force, but no one believed it. Because nothing, no avalanche, no animal, no storm, could explain what happened that night. So the theories began. Some say it was an avalanche, that the hikers, fearing a deadly slide, cut their way out of the tent and ran for safety. But if that were true, why were the footprints still visible? Why was the tent still standing? And why did their injuries not match those of an avalanche? Others believe the hikers stumbled onto something they weren't meant to see, a secret military test. Some reports claim strange orange orbs were seen in the sky that night. Radiation was found on some of their clothes. Could they have been victims of a Soviet experiment gone wrong? Or did they see something they weren't supposed to? Then there's the theory of the Yeti. One of the last photos taken by the hikers shows a blurry figure. Too tall, too strange. Could it be something not human? Did something, some creature, hunt them that night? Some say the hikers were not alone that night. That lights, strange, hovering orbs, were seen over the mountains. Were they attacked? Witnesses to something otherworldly? Or were they taken and left behind? And then there's the simplest yet most terrifying theory of all. The Mansi called this place the Mountain of the Dead. Maybe it was never meant to be disturbed. Maybe something was waiting for them. More than 60 years later, the Dyatlov Pass Incident remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of all time. No answers, no explanations, just questions and fear. They never came back, and whatever happened that night, it never left. Do you want to know the truth? For more than 60 years, the Dyatlov Pass Incident has haunted the world. 9 young hikers, a frozen mountain, a mystery buried under snow and fear. But after all the theories, all the speculation, what is the truth? Tonight, we face the final question. Will we ever know what really happened on that mountain? There is one photo that no one can explain. It wasn't found in a newspaper. It wasn't part of a government report. It was in the camera of one of the victims. A figure, blurry, too tall, too still, watching. Who or what was in the forest that night? Something made them run. Something made them tear out of their tent, barefoot into the freezing night. Were they escaping an avalanche? A monster? A secret military weapon? Or was it something worse? Something they couldn't even see? For decades, the Soviet government claimed it was an avalanche. But in 2021, a new report suggested something else. A rare phenomenon known as a slab avalanche. A slow, creeping wall of snow that buried the tent and sent them into the night, confused and injured. But this theory still doesn't explain the radiation, the missing tongue, the crushed skulls, and most chilling of all, why did some of the hikers seem to have been blinded? The native Mansi people always feared this mountain. They called it Kolat Shakal, the mountain of the dead. They warned others not to go there, not to disturb it, because once you do, you never come back. Did the hikers break a rule older than time itself? Every theory has holes. The avalanche theory doesn't explain the injuries. The military test theory doesn't explain why they were barefoot. The Yeti theory is terrifying but has no proof. And the UFO theory? Well, some say the truth is hidden in plain sight. Their last entry read, "Now we know that the snowmen exist." Some say it was a joke. Some say it meant nothing. But what if it wasn't a joke? What if it wasn't nothing? More than 60 years later, the mystery still lingers. Some say the case is closed. But when you look at the evidence, the photos, the whispers from history, one thing becomes clear. Something happened on that mountain. Something we may never understand. What do you believe?